so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
All right, we are back, TJ. It is fall camp, and Indiana football is rolling on the field. But first, a word from our partners over at Heartwork Brewing, heartworkbrewing.com. Great new place down in Bloomington. Let's have them tell us a little bit about themselves.
At Heartwork Brewing, we are fiercely independent. From our variety of craft beers to our artisan Neapolitan-style pizzas, we put our heart into our work. We offer a full menu of draft beers, from our award-winning lagers to IPAs, sours, even our house-made seltzer. Our Northside Taproom has a variety of events and spaces for groups of all sizes. Heartwork is proud to be a locally and veteran-owned business here in Bloomington, just a stone's throw from Memorial Stadium and Assembly Hall at 1703 North College Avenue. Visit heartworkbrewing.com for hours and event info. At Heartwork Brewing, we are fiercely independent. From our variety of craft beers to our artisan Neapolitan-style pizzas, we put our heart into our work. We offer a full menu of draft beers, from our award-winning lagers to IPAs, sours, even our house-made seltzer. Our Northside Taproom has a variety of events and spaces for groups of all sizes. Heartwork is proud to be a locally and veteran-owned business here in Bloomington, just a stone's throw from Memorial Stadium and Assembly Hall at 1703 North College Avenue. Visit.
All right, that's from our friends over at Heartwork Brewing. TJ, welcome back. How are you doing? How's the summer? And are we ready for football and a little bit of basketball today?
We are ready. Yes, we are definitely ready. Obviously, basketball is in exhibition mode, team bonding mode in Puerto Rico. Sounds like fun, looks like fun. Football, very much in competitive business mode. There's no preseason. There's no exhibitions. You got to get ready for that first game against Old Dominion, and that's exactly what they're doing. I know that today we're going to be talking about the offense. Very excited to do that. We are very much in our element. I know you've been able to see some of the team stuff at fall camp so far. I think that the general consensus seems to be this team is businesslike. They are approaching this as, we do not want to just replicate last season. We want to do what we did last year and then some. Obviously, that's your goal. But it seems to me like the mindset and the approach is exactly what you'd look for so far.
Yeah, absolutely. IU is going to open up the season against Old Dominion on August 30th. And, fall camp started about a week ago today. And I've been able to get down to 4 practices out of the 5. So all 4 that media were allowed in. We get to see, the middle 30 minutes or so part of it, offensive drills, individual drills, position drills, a little bit of team stuff on air, but, a good enough chunk to get a feel. And it is businesslike. And I mentioned this on a previous podcast. It's like you don't skip a beat. There's no like first day of work or first day of school. Like, we don't know where we're going, what we're doing, things like that. But it is just down to business. Now, look, if they go, 11-1 again and make the college football playoff, I don't think they'll be mad. I think they'd be very happy with it, even though that's copying the success. But it is a new year, and the slate is wiped clean for IU, and Kirk Cignetti has that. They've taken down the pictures of College Game Day and all that stuff. But I wish they would put college football playoff things in the stadium and just commemorate what last year was, because I don't think you can't forget about it. It's something to build off of. But let's get to the offense first. Last year, the offense was fantastic. They led the Big Ten in scoring with 41.3 points per game. They were top 5 in rushing yards. They did score 37 rushing touchdowns, which led the Big Ten and set a program record. Their passing offense was 6th in the conference at 261 yards per game, 33 touchdown passes as well. And then the total offense obviously was top 5 if over 425 yards per game. The offense last year, this is going to be a tough act to follow, TJ, but I do think that there are enough key pieces returning and then some additions to maybe this offense could be better. Although I don't know how much better you can get scoring 41 or 42 points per game.
Yeah, I don't know if better is necessarily the right word. I think that there could be some parts of this attack that do perform a little bit better. My biggest concern is, number one, health with the offense, because last year's IU offense actually was very healthy in terms of injury luck. I know Curtis Rourke, had an ACL, but he was able to play. And he had a thumb injury that did cost him a little bit. But by and large, your receivers were healthy outside of E.J. Williams. Your running backs were healthy. There were some nagging injuries that I know Keelan Black, had something early in the season, might have even been in fall camp, that kind of hampered him. Your offensive line stayed very healthy.
Nick Kidd, we forget that they played the last 3 or 4 games with their 3rd string guard, and as good as Drew Evans was, he wasn't the starter coming into fall camp until Nick Kidwell got hurt. So it was one of those preseason injuries that kind of got not swept under the rug like they were covering it up, but because Drew Evans came in and played so well, you kind of forget about it.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I just think by and large, when you look at in general, comparatively to other teams, let's just say in the Big Ten, Indiana's injury luck was pretty good on the offensive
unless
side
you're
of the ball.
Unless you're a kickoff specialist. Which was absolutely unbelievable that they went through like 4 of them.
Yeah,
but the injury luck, and it looks
so can you
far.
Replicate that? Is that going to happen again? Can't plan for it, obviously. But that's something that you can't necessarily count on having. And I do think that there's some valid concern after the starting quarterback, some valid concern after your, let's say, top 3 receivers. I think you feel really good about the starting 3, and we'll get into those specifics. And then I think that just there's an unknown, because everybody on your offensive line outside of the top 6, you haven't seen. Yep. So there would be some hesitancy and doubt if there were injuries in any of those position groups. But we mentioned the key returning players. Offensive line, Carter Smith, Drew Evans, Bray Lynch. So you feel good about the offensive line, and then the additions that they had, we'll touch on those. Running back, you get back Keelan Black. He'll have a larger role. You add a couple of good pieces to that room. Receivers, obvious. Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper. Awesome. That's a great starting point for your wide receiver core. Tight end, you're kind of starting over, and you went to the portal to address that, plus some young guys for depth. And then quarterback, you return Alberto Mendoza, again in a backup role, and you went to the portal to fill that critical need. So definitely some key pieces, more on the defense, but the offense returns a lot of key pieces as well. Really good starting blocks. I think that of the group, the ones that you feel absolutely great about, Carter Smith, one of the best offensive linemen in the Big Ten, if not the country. Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper, one of the better 1-2 duos at wide receiver in the Big Ten. That's a fantastic starting point for any offense.
Yeah, it is. And, you with Carter Smith coming back, you have the anchor of your offensive line there. Bray Lynch, because of the addition of Pat Coogan, gets to go back to the position he's comfortable playing.
Right.
And you don't really have to start him new at a position he really hasn't played yet at center. So I think that just having those two, and games are won up front. So having a veteran offensive line who's played in these environments and played in these games and have been successful is huge. You also get Charlie Becker back, who should be in the mix there in the second team wide receivers. But yeah, there are a lot of freshmen who are going to have to step up. There are a lot of transfers who are going to have to step up. But those key returning guys, and you're right, it is more on the defense, but you have those key guys who know the standard of the offense, know how they want to perform, and have performed at all Big Ten or all American levels last year. Let's go to key additions on the offense. TJ, obviously there are two big ones. Pat Coogan at center, who I think, look, we love Fernando Mendoza. I thought Pat Coogan's addition was probably the most important. And then Fernando Mendoza comes over from Cal. A lot of hype surrounding him being a first-round draft pick, being the number 1 overall pick. He has the arm talent and things like that, but he solidifies that position to where, on paper, you probably should not have any drop-off from Curtis Rourke, even though Rourke had one of the best, if not the best, seasons as a quarterback in IU history. And then the two running backs you bring in from the portal, Roman Hemby, who is a home run hitter at Maryland, kind of fell out of favor with Nolan Ray coming in, who's just a little bit quicker and a little bit faster. But Hemby will give them that, and you talked about it, that ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. That was kind of missing, a missing dynamic on the offense. You bring in Lee Beebe Jr., who's that banger running back who could wear defenses out. And then at the wide receiver positions, you had Tyler Morris. He got hurt, but you bring in Jonathan Brady from Cal, who in years past, if your star transfer wide receiver got hurt at IU, you're just out of luck. So IU went and got Jonathan Brady to play in the slot. You also have a kid from Malachi Jackson from App State coming in too. He dealt kind of with a hamstring injury in spring ball. Don't know if that's holding him back, but you do have some key guys coming in there as well. And then, of course, tight end you have Holden Stays and Riley Nowakowski, who I think is going to be a sneaky good player for IU this year.
Yeah, tight end, since the last thing you mentioned, Holden Stays gives IU a little bit of a different dimension than what they had a season ago. Much more of a receiving threat. He's capable of blocking. He was a good blocker at Tennessee, graded out very well on Pro Football Focus as a blocker. But his athletic profile is one that you didn't have at tight end last season. So he could be a bit of a matchup problem for defenses. Gives Mike Shanahan another weapon to kind of move around into interesting formations. Nowakowski,
people are going to be surprised at how well he could catch the ball.
You can't just say it because he was so important. But Nowakowski is intended to fill the role of being a blocker. Now, he thinks, and one of the reasons that he came to Indiana is he can be an asset as a pass catcher in this attack. We're going to find out if he's given the opportunity more than he was at Wisconsin, can he take advantage of it? The Indiana coaches clearly think so. But his initial most important thing is going to be as a blocker. He's very physical, can be used as kind of that extra offensive lineman in a lot of Indiana's base sets. So that's kind of the tight end room. Beyond them, you're looking at Bamba as a blocker, really, and then freshman is what you're looking at that you certainly intend to redshirt. You intend to redshirt those guys now.
Yeah, those freshmen are probably going to redshirt, and if you get down to the redshirts in that
They
room,
want them.
Yeah.
I do think they want those guys to redshirt. So you'll rely.
If you have to rely on them, something bad happens.
Yeah.
In the tight end room.
Yeah.
Or they become unbelievable. But I don't think physically they're not ready for the Big Ten grind. There are 4 games, see what you could do. And, if you have to burn a red shirt on a guy who's ahead of schedule to win a game,
sure,
then you do it. But yeah,
offensive line. The 2 names that we haven't mentioned yet that are new additions: Khalil Benson, former Indiana Hoosier, went to Colorado, and is now back at Indiana. Looks like right now he's working out at right tackle and squarely in a position battle with Zen Mikulski, another newcomer, transfer from Ohio State. Those 2 look like the top 2 options at right tackle. It's possible that Benson slides in and plays guard, but it seems like they are comfortable with whoever wins that starting job between Mikulski and Benson starts at right tackle. Bray Lynch, Pat Coogan, Drew Evans, Carter Smith over at left, moving from right to left. And then, you'd have Benson or Mikulski as a backup tackle that can play left or right for you. So those are your newcomers. Behind those guys, you're looking at, redshirt sophomores, redshirt freshmen, players that you hope can develop, get their game time in blowouts, and be able to step up next season when the offensive line goes through a major shift with a lot of seniors. At quarterback, right now it looks like Fernando Mendoza, Alberto Mendoza, and then Grant Wilson, transfer from Old Dominion. A veteran, in case of emergency, he can hopefully keep the offense from totally falling apart. But it looks like, from your observations, Alberto Mendoza is your second quarterback, and Fernando, of course, the unquestioned QB1. He was the day that he announced he was coming to IU. The comparisons are going to be made between who's better, Mendoza or Rourke. That part kind of doesn't interest me at all.
No, because it was Rourke on one leg and one hand for half the season. And I don't really want to find out what Fernando Mendoza could do on one leg with one hand for the rest of the season. So I think numbers. Yeah.
What's more interesting is, what does Fernando Mendoza do as well as Curtis Rourke that you can keep on doing in the offense? What does he do better than Curtis Rourke? What is he more comfortable with than Rourke was that you can install? Maybe that's just because he's healthy and Rourke was not, but that you can utilize, what formations, what packages, what plays does he have that Rourke was not able to utilize? And then what was Rourke really good at that you find Fernando Mendoza's not as comfortable doing that get removed from the offense? That's the more important part for me, and we're going to see that a little bit in the first part of the schedule. you're going to see, okay, this is what Fernando Mendoza is really comfortable with, and that's going to be what plays they go to on third downs. What do they go to on third down and 7 when they need to pick up a first down to keep a drive moving? You're going to see, okay, what is Fernando Mendoza comfortable doing? And if it's not called, they're either keeping it hidden for later on in the year, or he's not comfortable doing it. I think that those things are going to be a little bit more mobility, more moving the pocket. That's something that Rourke, his health limited from doing in 2024. Mendoza, even if Rourke was healthy, Mendoza a little bit more mobile than Curtis Rourke.
He is very comfortable throwing on the run.
Yeah, so I think you're going to see more rollouts, more moving the pocket, kind of moving the target point for the quarterback, and that opens up a lot if you're not constrained to just playing within the pocket. I think you're going to see more of that, and I think you're also, based on the running backs, which we'll talk about in a minute, I think that this running back room is going to be better catching the ball out of the backfield than last season's room was. And I think you might see some of that with more screen game where you're moving Mendoza along with running backs going out and a mobile offensive line with guys like Pat Coogan that can move. So I think you'll see some of that. Are you going to see IU lining up and running the option with the mobile quarterback? No.
They
but I
did
think
run triple option with Rourke in a couple plays last year.
Yeah. I think you will see a lot.
I would not put anything past Signetti and Mike Shanahan in this offense in terms of, like, they're going to give you different looks at it, different formations. And if it kind of looks like a triple option, I think it was against Nebraska that they ran it.
They were feeling themselves that day. So,
well, it was, against the greatest rush defense in the history of the sport. So
they were proving a point that day. But
you've
seen them practice. What stands out to you from the limited time? And again, you're not seeing game situations. You're not seeing them go up live against number one defense where they're getting hit. But what stood out to you? Number one, Alberto Mendoza from year 1 to year 2. And then obviously the most important one right now, Fernando, what have you seen in your getting eyes on him in Bloomington?
Starting with Alberto, I think he's cleaned up his mechanics from when he came in as a freshman. He always had arm talent, but he had that funky, like sidearm, short arm throw. And now, like, if he wasn't 3 inches shorter than Fernando Mendoza, you probably couldn't tell him apart. But he throws a good deep ball. He's confident. And a little bit of that might be you're playing with somebody or competing with somebody who you're very comfortable with in Fernando. Sure. But they brought Alberto into JMU. They liked Alberto Mendoza. And then they brought him to IU. They liked him that much to say, hey, you're not just a G5 steal. We're going to bring you with us to IU. But he looks, he's still a redshirt freshman. He still hasn't had outside of one game against Western Illinois. But arm talent-wise, he's up there with Fernando. And I think a lot of that has to do, they cleaned up his mechanics, and the ball gets out quickly, and he could throw that deep ball. Now, going to Fernando Mendoza, the danger I always thought of bringing in one of these stud transfer quarterbacks is that you'd end up like the guy, the jerk in the replacements instead of Shane Falco. I forgot what his name, Eddie Martell. Like just a total egomaniac, punk or whatever, but it doesn't seem like Fernando Mendoza's like that. He took his offensive lineman out to St. Elmo's. That's where NIL is at these days. He plays Lego Star Wars in the off season with his buddies. Like, he just seems a very down to earth guy who's not California cool, but knows he's talented, but is not super arrogant about it. Now he throws his deep ball is very consistent and very good. Both of the Mendozas could do that. In practices in the years past, when they do the fly routes or the go routes, like 40% of the time the ball would hit the ground, whether it's overthrown or underthrown and the receiver bobbles it. I'd say like 70% of the time the ball's right where it needs to be. Now there's no defense and things like that, and you can't really tell. Like I'm not big into keeping stats at practice because you don't know what the drill. You don't know what the drill is about. Is it to benefit offense? Is it benefit defense and all that stuff? But he could put touch on the ball when he needs to. He could zip the ball when he needs to. And it's not outrageous to say he's probably the best quarterback to come through Indiana that in the time that we've been covering them. And that includes Sudfeld, Penix, although Penix may have had just more raw arm talent because he was ridiculous. But the ability to play quarterback, he might be the best all-around guy that since we've been on the beat to play. And he's very comfortable running on the throw in terms of like he's not dumping it off for 5 yards. He could run, throw it on the run, and throw a 40-yard pass, and it's usually consistent and it's not a wobbly duck. So I think he has command of the offense, and we'll see. There's a reason he wanted to come here. Him and Chandler Whitmer get along, and he knows Cignetti's track record with quarterbacks. You're going to have a quarterback who plays well, and they will tailor that offense to his strength because they've done that in every single place that they've been. I mean, even going back to JMU, they had a new starter every year, and he was always up for Conference Player of the Year, and it could have been argued that Curtis Rourke could have been in that conversation had Jeremiah Smith not been from another planet. Let's get we talked a little bit about the offensive line. I do have some final thoughts about that. Drew Evans is definitely further along than I thought. Everybody, Sig said he was cleared. I needed to see with my own eyes. Okay, he's cleared for what? But he looks like he's good to go and ready there, and that allows the depth to be a little bit better. Khalil Benson can, he could be that swing sixth offensive lineman to where if you need somebody needs a blow, and Mikulski or even Drew Evans, if you have to put him on a snap count, can go in there, or you run a heavy package with that extra tackle. He could go there. Johnny looks pretty big. I was going to ask kind of beyond that first six that seem pretty established, right? Like who's going to be right tackle, we'll see. But the first six seems to be kind of here and then a little separation. Beyond that first six, who has kind of stood out to you, or do you think has stood out to the coaches? I know it's impossible to evaluate offensive lines when you're not really seeing a full game setting, but still. Yeah, I mean, they've only been in shoulder pads for a couple of days, but Johnny is one who I think would be in the rotation. As a guard, and then Lebfried probably is that fourth tackle. And if you could go 8 deep with Benson or Mikulski able to play multiple positions, I think you're in pretty good shape. A lot of these young guys, they look solid in practice. We'll see what happens when they go up, but to play as a redshirt freshman or even a true sophomore in the Big Ten is a tough ask, especially. But like you said, there's going to be a lot of seniors on this line, and you got to develop them that way. But you got to trust Bob Bostad and the staff in doing that, and they have. So you feel pretty good about the offensive line. We'll see what the rotations look like. Because they didn't rotate many guys last year, although they were on They were on guard number 3 by the end of the year. So you're looking at, okay, they had 7 guys they felt good playing with. So we'll see. But that's why this non-conference schedule is nice, is that you could get some of these younger guys in, take some of the pressure off of the seniors, maybe get them off the field a little bit if scores get out of hand. But it's been a while since you could put 2 years in a row and go, hey, Indiana's offensive line you feel pretty good about. And I think you can. And Pat Coogan's leading that way because he is a dude. He could pull at center. He's big. He just gives the line a little bit more legitimacy in terms of size and looking like a Big Ten offensive line. Switching to running backs, we mentioned it a little bit, TJ, about catching the ball out of the backfield. I do think it is a more diverse group. Last year, you could have run, and they were good. They were really good last year. Justice Ellison, Tyson Lawton, Kalon Black, and a little bit of Elijah Green, who since transferred, but they were all like the same player outside of Elijah Green. This year, Kalon Black is back. He brings that shiftiness and speed. He's not going to break an 80-yard touchdown, but he could give you 10, 15, 20-yard chunks. Whereas, Roman Henby is the guy who could break off a home run threat and catch the ball out of the backfield and kind of be that extra wide receiver. Lee Beebe is excellent in pass protection, can get you 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yards and just bang up the middle and give you a good running style, wear people down. You got Kobe Martin is in year 2 as a redshirt freshman who might get more playing time, but they didn't really go past those top 3 running backs. So we'll see. But you have a senior heavy position group where you need to develop depth. I thought Sean Clono looks good as a freshman coming in, as well as a guy who, if you could get him in a couple games and get him a couple carries, maybe put him on special teams and get him some experience, that could accelerate his development as well. Tight ends we touched upon. I do want to say Nowakowski. People are going to be surprised at how well he could catch the ball. He's not going to be Travis Kelce or Antonio Gates or Tony Gonzalez, but he can catch the ball a little bit and maybe be a Tony Richardson from the Jets back when the Jets were good a million years ago. And then Holden Stays is kind of the get off the bus guy. You really haven't had a tight end with his frame since Hendershot, and Hendershot was probably a little skinnier than him. Maybe AJ Barner, but Holden Stays looks like, he's the guy you go, oh, okay, who's that guy? But he needs to produce. He needs to live up to that potential. And like I think Alex said in our 30 Stories for 30 Days podcast, he's kind of outside of that production over potential mold that Cignetti has in transfers. Let's get to wide receivers, TJ. What do you think about the wide receiver room?
Yeah, one word on the tight ends. So you had Zach Horton last year, 21 catches. You had Bamba with 1 and Sam West with 1. So, you're combining for 23 receptions from your tight end. Do you think that number, 2025, over, under 23 receptions for your tight ends?
The postseason games count?
Yeah.
Over. Easily over. I think easily over.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I do think that there's more versatility with this tight end group because of Holden Stays. And as you say, Nowakowski's ability as well that we're going to see. But I also think that it goes into this next part, which is a wide receiver room that perhaps not quite as deep as last year's was, particularly in guys that just can get, eat up targets, getting first downs like Keyshawn Williams or Miles Price, where kind of your inside slot merchants. I think that is kind of the one area of this offense that there's some uncertainty for me is who's going to be at slot. Right now, the obvious three that you have at wide receiver, Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper, and then E.J. Williams continues to draw really rave reviews from how he looks at camp so far. He's a guy that you just, I'm not going to tell anybody who they have to root for, but you should root for E.J. Williams to have a great year and to be healthy. He deserves it. He's been through a whole lot in his football career. And he's worked really hard to get himself and his body ready for this season at Indiana. It would have been very easy for him to get offended by, essentially being asked to leave the team and go, transfer down a level and just try to say, hey, I was at Clemson. I deserve to start here at, I don't know, Coastal Carolina or something.
Yeah.
But he worked really hard, got healthy, and is ready to fight for his spot at IU. And by all accounts has been awesome so far in fall camp. But any of those guys true slot receivers? No, not really. They can play there. Elijah Surratt has played there and can do it. Omar Cooper, capable of doing it. E.J. Williams could do it, but I don't think it's the best use of his straight line speed. You mentioned the deep balls. E.J. Williams, if he's healthy, that's a heck of a deep threat right there. With his size and his long stride and his ability to go up and get the ball over a DB when it's deep, that's a fantastic deep threat for you. I don't think that slot is the best use of his skills. So what are you left with there? Mekhi Jackson could play slot. Charlie Becker, more of an outside receiver prototype body.
Jonathan Brady
and LeBron Bond, right? Those are the two guys that you look at as more your prototypical slot guys. So it's interesting, the physical profiles that IU's receivers have. It looks to me like their top kind of 4 or 5 guys outside of Brady and Bond are much more naturally suited to outside receiver roles. So who steps up in that slot role? And I think you might see Indiana utilize a tight end in a kind of a slot role with the Holden Stays or a Nowakowski, where you put them against a smaller DB and pick up first downs on maybe a third and medium, where you put a tight end in a position that's hard for a defense to cover. But it's a fantastic receiver group. The ceiling on it will be determined by how they handle that slot role and who steps up to take it.
Yeah, it's a room that I actually feel better about watching fall camp than I did going into it. Just based on players' histories. Mekhi Jackson was like an all-American at the FCS level. He really hasn't had the best camp, but you expect him to be solid. He was good at App State.
Yeah.
Jonathan Brady was a 1,000-yard receiver at New Mexico State. Was a very good receiver at Cal last year. He has the rapport with Fernando Mendoza. He could step in there. So, and then LeBron Bond, we all saw what he could do in the spring game, and he might not be the first guy in there, the first game, but I'm telling you, he's going to be a playmaker because they need the guy like Keyshawn Williams last year, and he's not as thick as Keyshawn Williams because he's 4 years younger. But he's a guy who, with the ball in space, can make the plays that Keyshawn Williams made and can avoid tackles and turn a 8-yard pass into a 20-yard pass. So it is a group I feel better about, but there is still, they have to perform. I'm going on what's on paper and past performances. basically the back of your baseball card. Is if you play to the back of your baseball card or football card in this case, they should be all right. You could see Nowakowski at tight end and Holden stays in the slot. That could be one of those formations that you see. But the wide receiver group, I thought, going in, okay, who do you have besides Surratt, Cooper, and maybe Charlie Becker? And there's actually more depth there. And I do want to, there's one freshman walk-on that I think he's not going to play this year, maybe not for a couple years, but Hunter Stroud out of Martinsville. He's a guy who gives me like Mitchell Page vibes. He's quick. He has really good hands. Like, he doesn't bobble the ball at all. It sticks. He tucks it. In the next couple years, I think he can, if he sticks with the program and, whatever, if the rules stay the way they are now, I think he could be a guy who earns like a scholarship or a spot and becomes like a Luke Timian or Mitchell Page. But that's my walk-on shout out for the day.
Yeah, and you look at after this season, Surratt's going to be done. If Cooper has a great year, he might go. Brady will be done. Williams will be done. So really, you're looking at, okay, who do we currently have on the roster that's next? So you're going to look particularly at these early season games twofold. One, which one of these guys is capable of helping us this year with wide receiver depth? So you're looking at Becker, you're looking at Bond, you might be looking at Davion Chandler. I think he's probably too small in the frame wise to impact the Big Ten this season. But, he's got speed. So you're looking at that. You're looking at Kendrick. And you're trying to see, can any of these guys help us beyond these 4 games? Right? Yeah. Beyond 4 games, can anybody help us? And then you're looking at how comfortable are we with each of these players moving into next season? How many receivers do we need to go get in the portal? And that's what these early games, you hope can be used for. Is Old Dominion, Indiana State, Kennesaw State, really good opportunity, particularly in the second halves of those games. Maybe not Old Dominion so much because they're a little better. But, wow, my dogs they are having fun. But, you're looking at which of these guys can we rely on both this year and, more importantly, next year when a lot of our veteran receivers move on.
Yeah, that's
it's an interesting group for sure. But
yeah,
a lot of good speed, right? I mean, that's one thing that they've emphasized is getting explosive speed that can make things happen.
You no longer have 5'6", 220-pound wide receivers who run 4.7 40s. And sure, some of those guys are really good. But you do need diversity there, and I think you got it. Now, some of it might be young, but that's the importance of those non-conference games. All right, TJ, moving on. We'll play a little game here. If blank performs well on offense, IU will be successful.
The obvious answer is Fernando Mendoza. I'll stay away from that, and I'll go with Pat Coogan.
Stole mine.
Yeah, I'll go with Pat Coogan. You could just extrapolate this out to the whole offensive line, but Pat Coogan being the center, Mike Kadick was so important to Indiana from a leadership standpoint and his play on the field as a senior. So you got Pat Coogan at center. It's an extremely important position in this offense, in any offense, and his relationship with Fernando Mendoza, if that pair can perform as well as Mike Kadick and Curtis Rourke were able to as a pair, you feel good about your offense.
Yep, I'm going to go with Roman Henby if he performs well, because he does give that big play, explosive play ability to that running back room. He can also catch the ball out of the backfield. I think if he plays to how he's played in the past at Maryland and can be that all Big Ten level, whether it be honorable mention or third, second, first team, it makes that offense so much better. Now, if he comes in and struggles, you really struggle with running back depth with BB and Kalon Black, and go back to that. Okay, where are we going to get that big play in the running game from? Breakout star. I'm going to take this one first because I don't want you to steal mine because I think we have the same one again. I'm going to go LeBron Bond. I think between special teams and offense, he will be your breakout star.
That's true. Special teams,
He's a guy who's really, really tough to catch. He's got speed. We all saw what Jalen Lucas could do, and I think he is a better football player than Jalen Lucas. He might not be faster, but he is a better football player than Jalen Lucas.
So you're saying he can actually catch the ball?
He could catch the ball, and he could change direction.
It's a good start.
Yep.
It's a good start. Yeah, not to throw shade. Hope Jalen Lucas stays healthy this year. Hope he does.
Who's your breakout star?
Yeah, LeBron Bond was certainly somebody that was on my mind. I don't know if this qualifies because he is very well known at this point for Indiana fans. Kalon Black. I really, really like the way that he runs. I do think that an injury put him kind of behind the others in the running back rotation last year. I think he was going to play more, but just fell behind Lawton in particular. And Lawton was playing really well, so there was no reason to change anything. But I think that Black is, one, incredibly strong. Two, he runs like it. He runs with, it appears to me that in his mind, he is thinking, I'm going to punish the defender for trying to tackle me.
Yes.
And that, I enjoy watching that style of running back. No, he's not going to break off a bunch of 50-plus yard runs, but I do think he's going to be somebody that really is appreciated by IU fans for the way that he runs the ball this season.
Pretty
sure
I think the coach is still trying to get his cleat marks out of his back after he got run over.
Yeah, I think we'll have more like that, where it's just going to be a lot of tough yardage and tone-setting plays from Kalon Black.
All right. Closing thoughts, TJ, from you. Thank you once again for joining us on the podcast. Closing thoughts on the offense.
It's an offense that returns a good mix of experience and newcomers, plus guys that are coming to IU that already have a lot of experience at a high level of football. Roman Hemby, Big Ten, Pat Coogan, Notre Dame. It's a group that I think should be able to live up to the standard that was set last season. I think that there's some interesting wrinkles that could be done by Mike Shanahan, and I kind of blindly trust Shanahan and Cignetti with offense. Add in a good group of personnel and probably their most physically talented quarterback that they've worked with, and I think that excitement should be really high surrounding this offense. It's the best way that I can describe it is it's an offense that is fun to watch because you can see a well thought out plan and then it's executed well because they coach that plan so well during practices. We can't always say that. And if you watch a lot of football as you and I do, it's easy to see the offenses that do that because there's a lot more that don't look like they have a cohesive strategy or plan on offense. That's more common in college than not. So I I just really appreciate being able to watch Mike Shanahan and Kurt Signetti work on offense, and I think they've got a really good group of personnel that'll be able to execute things at a pretty high level. I don't think they'll average as much as last season's team did, but I still think they're going to be a complete handful for opposing defenses.
Yeah, speaking of fun offenses, I just go back to 2023 fall camp. We go in and, Walt Bell is running the option at drills. And this is so far from that, you go in and you trust the offense to make plays.
Yes.
And it is enjoyable to watch. And that's, I think, part of the fun in going to games now is that the offense is going to put up points. Where I think they need to grow and where I think Pat Coogan helps and guys with these Power 5 is on the road in tough environments. You saw them struggle at Ohio State and at Notre Dame. It's Ohio State, especially with the crowd noise, with them timing up the snaps. You now have a veteran center who went to the national championship last year, has won in tough environments, has played in tough environments, who's not going to be, shaking in his boots when it's loud as hell at Autzen Stadium or at Iowa or at Penn State, where it's like, okay, guys, he'll step into okay, guys, we've done this before. Let's do it. Here's what we're going to do, and things like that. So I do think there's a lot of room for growth. I think Pat Coogan helps with that. I think having a guy like Carter Smith, who's been in those environments now again, and Mikel Kamara called him the best offensive lineman in the country. So it's high praise. We'll see. All this talk about IU not being ready or not playing well against these top teams, we'll see. We'll see if they learn from those experiences. There's a lot of talk about learning from those experiences. And if the offense performed just a little bit better against Notre Dame and didn't throw an interception near the goal line, or took advantage a little bit more at Ohio State and didn't, just succumb to the noise, you might be talking about Indiana a little bit differently. So anyway, that does it for our podcast today. Thank you, TJ, for joining us. We'll have all the fall camp coverage on HoosierHuddle.com. We have a ton of stuff. We have our game previews, like first glance previews, practice reports, player countdown profiles, player stories, and then we'll have basketball, whatever we can get off the old, Morse code machine tonight. TJ, we'll try and share with you. So we're going back to the 40s. We'll try and get as much information as we can. I know we have some friends down there in Puerto Rico, so hang on. Anyway, keep coming back to HoosierHuddle.com. $15, subscribe, gets you the year. That deal ends when kickoff happens, and it goes up to a whopping $30 a year. So take advantage of it while you can. Also, join our Pick'em group. $20. Winner gets half the pot at the end of the year. Easy. It's about 10 picks a week. Super easy on ESPN.com. You click. Details are in the forum. You could Venmo me. I will send you a message with the password and come compete against me, TJ, and the other Hoosier Huddle staff.